Alright guys, the time is now for a showdown between the Vampire Coast, who's going to be led by Grumpy Cat atop his mighty scratching post, and the Beastmen, who are going to be led by Malagor the Dark Omen. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So as far as my build goes, I do have quite a few monsters. I actually do have the Rotting Leviathan, which is pretty good against Beastmen infantry. It's heavily armored, so those very low tier Ungors and Gore Herds really pretty much can barely put a dent in it. And yeah, it causes fear, causes terror, has pretty good armor piercing. And there's also a couple dudes with shotguns riding on the side, which is definitely quite a bit of fun. Although it looks like they do have the handguns. But essentially, it's just kind of an anchor for your army. It's tough for the Beastmen infantry to deal with. And it's just a bit of a kind of a presence here. And it looks so cool. Look at the mask coming up here. It's ridiculous. For the front line, we have a couple groups of the zombie powered deckhand mobs. Pretty good against Minotaurs. They have a little bit of armor piercing against Bestigors. And by zombie standards, they do have high melee defense, so it's really not too bad. And I think they make a pretty good core to the army against the Beastmen. We got Count Noctilus on his scratching post, or the Necrofex Colossus as it's actually called. And he has the standard kit. He has the Drown Dead, Invocation of Nehek, and that is pretty much it. So he's ready to party. You can see he's making some cool, epic gestures. We do have the Morngul Haunter, pretty good as well. It does have an AoE slow against Gorbulls and other, mobile Beastmen troops. Hits hard, causes terror. Definitely can't ask for much more. We have two, actually one Fellbat, one Deathshriek Terrorgeist to kind of help secure the skies in case he brought like 3 or 4 Harpies. And then on top of that, we do also have 2 Deck Choppers with the handguns, which are just going to be shooting at Gorbulls. And man, his build is crazy. Triple Cygor with the more Cygor summons coming. So Malagor the Dark Omen is actually going to be summoning more Cygors on top of this, which is going to be absolutely bananas. So, and it's actually a bit of an interesting thing because, not Malagor, or Count Noctilus. He's too slow to dodge the boulders. Normally, you can dodge Cygor boulders pretty easily with lords just by like side strafing and moving in a bit of a evasive maneuver, right? But Count Noctilus is a little bit slow, so the boulders are definitely going to do huge damage. So I really like this build for my opponent here. But the front line for his army is going to be Ungor Spearman herds, a couple raiders here in the secondary core, 3 Cygors, including the Eye of Moresleep, 2 Gorbulls for anti-large against Prometheans, against Leviathans. I mean, the Gorbulls are pretty good against a lot of the different units in my army here, so definitely like that quite a bit. He's got Malagor, who's just here to strictly summon Cygors. It looks like, yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, that's it for his force. I also do have 2 Scurvy Dogs. I have one here and one on the far side as well. So let the boulder smashing begin. So the 3 Cygors, I believe they're going to be throwing at Noctilus the entire time. Noctilus will be returning fire, shooting over here at the Cygor, but a bit of a mistake. I should have realized that he had the advantage there in terms of like firepower. And I should have just like ran over to the forest and hid and maybe just like popped out and shot every now and then. But yeah, we're going fisticuffs here. We're going big. So I do run in there and I do see the raiders realizing they're going to be able to counterplay my deck droppers, but I do have the maneuverability, so I can simply like run over here, run away from these 2, and inundate these other Ungor raiders with my hounds. So the Scurvy Dogs do get in here. They're going to be feasting on the Ungor raiders, doing great damage, able to kind of break them down pretty quick. But the Gorbull is here helping, and there's probably going to be some reinforcing infantry maybe being pulled back, but honestly, Papa Gorbull probably can finish those guys off by himself. The other Scurvy Dogs on the far side are doing the same thing, and you can see my opponent is going to be pulling back his Ungor Spearman herds to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen on the other side. And ultimately, the boulder bombardment is still happening, and you can see that Count Noctilus is just taking boulders to his peg legs, to his chest, even up on his crow's nest, and somehow he's still surviving. But yeah, that's a lot of damage. I really like that as a counter pick. Now, if I had went with like Solastra or Luther, on his Terrorgeist or even on foot, this strategy would be pretty null and void against those type of targets. But against Count Noctilus, man, this is just like such punishment. He's just getting destroyed. Anyways, right now, my deck gunners are going to be shooting into the Cygors. I am able to break off the guns over here, not guns, but the Ungor Raiders, so the Fellbats are going to be sweeping in. The Terrorgeist also gets a nice little charge on this Summon Cygor and was able to get some good breath attacks and damage on the Eye of Moresleep as well. So the fighting's underway here in the front. The Ungor Spearman herds are going to be engaging with the zombie powered deckhand mobs. Boulders are still slamming into Count Noctilus, and the Morngul Haunter in the front line is going to be helping out versus the infantry trying to clear things up. Now the 2 Gorbulls are coming in, which is going to be a little bit scary. Thankfully for me, the deck gunners are firing without too many problems. They're shooting at the Cygor here, but just boulders just for days on Count Noctilus. It's so absurd. And he does get a pretty good little engagement here with the Gorbulls on the Morngul Haunter. I was pulling in the crab, and it looks like he's going to be switching to actually go after Noctilus, which is a good choice. I will be falling back to my halberds here. The Haunter and the Leviathan coming in, and they actually do some really good damage to the Gorbulls. They're able to spank them a couple times, knock them over. But the boulder pressure is still coming in pretty strong, especially since he has the summons. The raiders over here, offline for the most part, and here we did summon some gunnery mobs, so the gunnery mobs are going to be shooting the Ungor raiders, which is good value for me. And I'm just trying to remember, I need to focus down his, really powerful Cygor. So the Deathshriek Terrorgeist, not as much of an anti-large specialist as the Vampire Count one, but still quite good here. He's going to be able to wear down the Eye of Moresleep, but the Gorbulls are probably going to rotate over, I would imagine, and help out. Over here on the far side, this one's pretty well protected. My hounds were feasting on the Ungor Raiders, but he has some spears helping out, so I wasn't able to fully kind of finish those guys off. The balance of power is in my opponent's favor, simply because of the Cygor summons. But, our onslaught is pouring forward here. You can see the Rotting Leviathan and all these guys doing really, solid damage against the Gorbulls here. We're going to be moving on to the Cygor and finishing this bad boy off. So things are looking pretty good, but again, my opponent has gotten a ton of value. My infantry is pretty much all gone. And also Cat Noctilus, my lord, is almost at his healing cap and almost dead, right? So even though I've gotten a few decent engagements, my opponent is still in pretty good shape, especially considering he can continue to summon Cygor. So the Gorbals are going to be falling back, going after the Deathstreak Terrorgeist here. The frontline engagement is, in decent shape. Zombie Pirate Gunnery mobs are shooting into the summon Cygor. The deck droppers with handguns are also shooting in, so everything is going pretty well in that respect. Morsleep, unfortunately, still online, so he's just going to be focusing down Noctilus. And yeah, I really should have just hidden the forest, but I wanted to actually use Noctilus's missile attacks to really kind of finish off my opponent's forces. So a bit of a mistake there, but again, I really wanted to just try and punch it home and finish off the Cygors. So the Crab and the Haunter are able to finish off this summon Cygor here. You can see he's down to 1 HP, and there he goes. Right now, just still continuing to fight the Gorbals, but Malagor is going to be summoning another Cygor, which is definitely quite powerful. That's going to be like the 5th or 6th one he's got in this game. And you can see the frontline battle is still kind of underway here. The Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs fighting. Raiders still shooting, but we're able to clean that situation up pretty well. The Haunter is starting to get low, though, and over here, the Rotting Leviathan does get a little bit overextended, and I get caught by the Gorbals, as well as Malagor, who did get some pretty good combat buffs, but on the very least, the Deathstreak Terrorgeist in the back is able to go after the Eye of Morsleep, and you can see I'm going to be pathing him back in, and it looks like we're going to get the Eye down here, 450 HP, and the Terrorgeist should be able to finish him off, and down he goes. So my opponent, as far as Cygors go, only has the one Cygor, and he actually has a whole nother one over here, so Cygors, again, are still pretty powerful in melee. I mean, he could probably put a bit of a hurt on my Terrorgeist here, as well as my Leviathan and Haunter, but I'm just trying to get rid of them as fast as I can. Just going after them with the Haunters and Leviathans, just trying to drag these things down as they're just causing tons of problems. And at this point, I was like, okay, he only has one Cygor left. I think I can kind of out-sustain him with the Invocation of Nehek. Granted, Invocation of Nehek can't be used on count. I don't know if it's in general, but if your leadership is broken, so I wasn't able to, as the game goes on, when his leadership does eventually break here, you guys will see. But the deck droppers here are shooting at the Cygor, but he does have a couple Raiders still that I wasn't aware of because they came out of stock. So they're doing some pretty good work against my bats, actually able to finish them off. And over here, he gets a really good engagement against the Terrorgeist. The Gorbal plus Malagor were able to get a really good charge on it, and I had to run for quite some time before I was able to get back up in the skies. So very well played there. He does have a Gorbal here with 258 HP, so the deck droppers are going to be shooting that Gorbal down. Hopefully we can finish him. Here they go. Come on, shoot, you bats. Shoot it. Shoot him. Actually, yeah, they are going after that target. So I was focusing down the appropriate Gorbal, and you can see he's going to be toppled right there. The other Terrorgeist is taking some Raider fire, which isn't good. So I'm trying to run him back to Noctilus to actually get an Invocation of Nehek off. But his leadership is just tanking, so I'm trying to side strafe to everything I can. And here we do have the Haunter and the Leviathan. The Goon Squad are just kind of riding about, definitely doing good work, and the zombies are advancing for the most part. So Noctilus is still somehow, some way alive. My opponent is ahead on the bounce of power, though. He has a very healthy Gorbal. He finally kills the Deathstreak Terrorgeist with the Raiders. And he has Malagor as well as his full health Cygor. So it's going to be a very tough battle. The Gorbal is very good against all these targets with his anti-large. And I'm about to lose my Lord, which is, going to leave me in a pretty tough situation because once he does go negative leadership, he can't heal himself anymore with Invocation of Nehek. So my opponent forming a bit of a Helm's Deep here. I do use the Wraithstorm on the Gorbal, trying to kind of poke him down. And just kind of shooting with Noctilus, trying to trade wherever I can. But this was actually one of the MVPs for my opponent. These Ungor Raiders come out of the forest and they actually break his leadership with the supporting fire from the Cygor. They will in just a moment, and he's going to start crumbling, and that's definitely going to be very problematic. My apologies for the noises. My neighbors are actually moving. But anyways, here you can see the Morgul Haunter as well as the Rotting Leviathan are going to be pouring in here, but the Gorbal's in good shape. He has support. Malagor, again, 55 melee attack, 45 400. He's definitely not going to be a complete pushover, especially against the lightly armored Haunter. And my opponent does have spears here. So you can see we get in there, we fight. We're getting dragged down a little bit, but we're going to be going after the Gorbal, realizing he is the last anti-large target, right? So if I can kill the Gorbal, I felt pretty confident that I could do well, but my opponent actually surges forward with the Cygor, and it's a really good engagement on the Morgul Haunter as I try and slip him away. But the Gorbal is so low, 466 HP. The Rotting Leviathan, of course, won't be able to catch him. The guns on the back of the Leviathan are also going to be shooting at the Gorbal, trying to wear him down. So man, just such a close battle. Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs were summoned in the forest before Noctilus did die, so he actually did go down over here to the Cygor pressure. And we just got this pit fight on our hand. Just an extremely close fight here. Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs fighting to the bitter end. The Leviathan just fighting. The deck droppers are also shooting against the Gorbal, and he gets crab slapped so hard. So the Rotting Leviathan is able to slap that crab boy. But we lost our Haunter. All we really have left is this big angry crab, and it should be able to do some good work, but I don't know if it's going to be enough because my opponent's leadership is in good shape. I do have deckhand mobs coming in from other areas of the battlefield where they were fighting. Now, if these guys were here right now, this very second, and I had this deckhand mob and this one fighting, I think we would be able to pull this game out and actually maybe turn it around by like routing everything. But here, the Leviathan's a little bit unsupported. The Crab and Malagor are going to be kind of beaten on him. And even though he's very tanky, I think we're going to get slapped with army losses because our reinforcements weren't nearby. In the back, you can see we were trying to disrupt his archers with the deck droppers with handguns, but they're actually able to fight me off, which was pretty impressive. That's going to be all she wrote. So very well played to my opponent. It was a super fun game. And, honestly, his Cygor build was like a pretty hard counter against Noctilus. Like I couldn't sit down and be effective with him. Everywhere I moved, he was getting hit with Warp Gaze. There was Gorbals chasing him, and the 5 Cygors at one point were just like raining so much damage onto him that I had 2 choices. I could like hide in the trees and just try and line of sight and block however I can, or I can just like, so either way, I'm not using my Lord, I'm having to hide, or I'm just taking like 5 boulders to the face, which was brutal. So that was a really fun build for my opponent for sure. Definitely makes me think that the other, I mean, that's probably not something you're going to see terribly often, but yeah, I do think that this build, regardless, there were circumstances and mistakes I made in the game that potentially cost it for me. I think that if I'd been a little bit more disciplined on keeping my troops together and maybe just advancing on the Cygors, bringing Noctilus into melee and just marching him around with the Goon Squad, overcasting Invocations to get more value, I think I could have been able to pull out the game. But again, my play mistakes, letting the Deathshriek Terrorgeist get caught, that didn't need to happen. I had the advantage, I had the speed, but I let it get caught by the Gorbals. So that was a huge mistake on my part that I think cost me the game. But I still think the build would have been pretty efficient had it been played in an optimal manner. I just unfortunately made a lot of mistakes that game. But my opponent did really well. His Gorbal play was solid. His Cygor play was awesome. And yeah, I definitely think Malagor, the Dark Omen there, did a pretty good job. So again, very well played to my opponent, Pinkle Z. Look forward to running into you again on ladder. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this Vampire Coast game. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.